figure in keeping with the season and all, and because cowboy tunes is one of the few things you can play on the bagpipes that isn't bagpipe music.
Oh, okay.
So I worked up a few of those, and I got old Bossy here. Easy, Bossy. And, you know, we're out here working together.
Cool.
Did you build the bagpipe?
I didn't weld the bag. Is kind of a custom job. You don't usually see that, you know. I had somebody make that up for me because before I lived here, I was living in Kansas City for the last 5 years, and they call that Cowtown. So I had this made up specially for Cowtown.
Cool.
I'm from Chicago originally. South Side. I grew up on Marquette Park when I was a little kid. And then I moved up when I was about 18. I moved up to the north side, kind of like Old Town and Armitage and Halstead. I lived upstairs from the Old Town School of Folk Music for a few years, and all over the north side, really. County Cook, I like to call it.
Oh, yeah, I'm from Evanston. How'd you get into it? You Irish?
I'm Irish by birth, yeah, you know, South Side Irish.
Southside Polish, too. Steel mills? Your dad worked in the mills?
No, my dad actually worked as a salesman for Ryerson Steel, you know, funnily enough. And as a salesman, originally started out as a draftsman, and then he moved up the ladder. So yeah, he used to work for a steel company, absolutely.
So what do you think of the hoe?
What do I think?
Omaha.
Oh, the hoe! I'm liking it here, definitely liking it here. I mean, Omaha people seem to have more of a sort of a, what you call an appreciation for the weird, you know, which obviously I've got a sort of a taste for myself. And yeah, that helps if you're going to be out here doing this sort of thing. People don't freak out when they see something a little off the beaten path, you know, they kind of seem to like it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like Chicago, though. Did you ever play by the water tower?
When I was living in Chicago, oh Lord, that was about 20-some years ago. I moved out of Chicago a long time ago. I wasn't doing this then. I moved out of Chicago and I lived in New York for about 20 years, and that's when I started getting a little weird.
Yeah, the busker scene in Chicago is fantastic.
Is it? Yeah, it wasn't happening when I was living there, but again, that was a long time, 20-some years ago, you know. I think if I had tried it back then, I would have got run in, you know, in fast order.
Yeah, summertime comes back, you gotta go back for a little bit. It's like fantastic. I mean, there's usually 20 buskers, you know, mannequins, every sort of thing.
I heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, right by the water tower.
Over by what they call Millennium Park, right?
No, Millennium's further down.
Yeah?
It's right, the water tower, right on Michigan.
Oh, okay, sure, by the water tower, yeah.
Magnificent mile, or, you know, around Michigan, all the shops are.
It's been a while.
Yeah, definitely go back. It's cool. It's cool. So your turn.
So where in New York did you live?
Oh, again, I lived all over. I lived there for 20-some years. I started out living Lower East Side. Back when you can afford to live on the Lower East Side, this is like early 80s, and I lived up Upper West Side for a while, up near the park, West 69th Street. I lived in Hoboken for about 10 years, back when you could afford to live in Hoboken, and finally ended up in West New York, and then moved out to, well, I moved out of New York a little bit after 9/11. Things started getting a little weird, and the whole vibe changed considerably. But I was there for that, and that was interesting. And yeah, while I was in New York, that's when I first started getting into the whole Irish and sort of Irish rock scene.
So, you said you've been playing this for 20 years now?
I've been playing the pipes for about 20 years. I started out, originally I was a drummer, and I started out playing the Irish rock stuff. That would be closer to 30 years ago. I don't even like to think about it. But yeah, I was one of the first guys in the States to play Irish rock, Celtic rock as they call it now. And after about having been through about 3 or 4 bagpipers, kept having to replace them, and I said, heck with this, I'm going to learn to do it myself and have one less thing to worry about. So I learned to play the pipes. Little did I know that in the process of learning to play the pipes, I was going to give myself about 8 or 10 new things to worry about. but at least I didn't have to worry about replacing bagpipers anymore.
Right. So, like the Pogues or even earlier?
The Pogues, yeah, well, they were an inspiration in a sense. I was in England one time. This was in about 1985, I guess, and I went over for, there's a band called Fairport Reunion. They were one of the first Celtic rock bands, and every year they used to have this, not Fairport Convention. They used to have their annual reunion concert, and I went over there in, I think it was 1985, and while I was over there, I went down to Brixton in London, and there was a concert by this band called the Pogues, which I had never heard of. I went to see this concert, and I came out of there thinking, well, hell, you know, I didn't think I was really good enough to start an Irish rock band, but if these guys can do it, surely I've got a shot. So yes, they were an inspiration to me, sort of.